When Bullies' paint prank backfires, they never knew he was a combat champion. Isaiah Matthews hunched his shoulders as he navigated the crowded hallway of Westridge High School. At 15, he was shorter than most boys his age, with a slim build that made him look almost fragile. His dark-rimmed glasses kept sliding down his nose, and he pushed them up with a nervous gesture that had become almost automatic in the 3 weeks since he'd transferred to this school. It wasn't just his size that made him stand out. Being one of the few black students in this predominantly white suburban school already drew unwanted attention. Add to that his quiet demeanor and the slight stutter that emerged when he was nervous, and Isaiah had unknowingly painted a target on his back from day one. What nobody at Westridge knew was that back in his old neighborhood in Chicago, Isaiah had been training in mixed martial arts since he was 7 years old. His father, a former military combat instructor, had insisted that his son learn to defend himself. For 8 years, Isaiah had trained religiously, earning a black belt in karate and becoming proficient in Brazilian jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai. He had even competed in junior tournaments across the Midwest, accumulating an impressive collection of trophies that now sat in boxes in their new garage. But Isaiah's father had always emphasized that fighting was for self-defense only, never to intimidate others or show off. Real strength, he often said, is shown by walking away when you can. So when the trouble started at Westridge, Isaiah did exactly that. He walked away. The trouble had a name: Derek Reynolds. Tall, muscular, and perpetually smirking, Derek was a junior and the undisputed alpha of Westridge's social hierarchy. His father was some big shot on the school board, which seemed to grant Derek immunity from consequences. His two sidekicks, Tyler Mason and Jason Keller, followed him everywhere, laughing at his jokes and backing him up when needed. "Well, look who it is," came the all-too-familiar voice as Isaiah made his way to his locker. "It's the library mouse." Isaiah kept his eyes down, pretending not to hear. He quickened his pace slightly, but not enough to look like he was running away. That would only make things worse. "Hey, I'm talking to you, Four Eyes." Derek stepped directly into Isaiah's path, forcing him to stop. The hallway suddenly seemed to go quiet, other students pausing to watch. "I need to get to class," Isaiah said, hating the stutter that slipped out. "Oh, he needs to get to kick class," Derek mimicked, earning snickers from Tyler and Jason. "What's the rush? We just want to chat with our new friend." Isaiah felt his heart racing. His hands instinctively curled into fists, but he quickly relaxed them. "Remember what Dad said. Walk away if you can." "Please let me pass," Isaiah said, managing to keep his voice steady this time. "Or what?" Derek leaned in, towering over Isaiah. "What's a little runt like you going to do about it?" For a brief moment, Isaiah imagined executing a simple sweep that would put Derek flat on his back. The move was so clear in his mind, the shift of weight, the precise placement of his foot, the quick pivot. It would be over in seconds, and the look on Derek's face would be priceless. But that wasn't who Isaiah was anymore. His family had moved to this new town for a fresh start after his mother got a job as head nurse at the local hospital. His father had made him promise to stay out of trouble, to focus on his studies instead of fighting, and Isaiah intended to keep that promise. "Nothing," Isaiah finally answered. "I'm not going to do anything." Something in his calm demeanor seemed to unsettle Derek momentarily, but the bully quickly recovered. "That's what I thought." He shoved Isaiah's shoulder hard, causing him to stumble back against the lockers. "Know your place, new kid." As Derek and his friends swaggered away, laughing, Isaiah took a deep breath and straightened his glasses. A girl nearby, Emma Rodriguez, who shared his biology class, gave him a sympathetic look, but quickly averted her eyes when her friends pulled her along. "Just get through the day," Isaiah told himself. Just get through the day. But getting through the day at Westridge High was becoming increasingly difficult. In the cafeteria, Derek and his crew would make a point of knocking into Isaiah's tray, sending his lunch flying. In gym class, Isaiah was always the last one picked for teams, and Tyler made sure to aim particularly hard when they played dodgeball. Even in the library, his one sanctuary, he'd find crude drawings left at his usual table, or his books mysteriously relocated while he was searching the shelves. Isaiah tried to stay under the radar. He ate lunch quickly, or skipped it altogether. He claimed a stomachache to get out of gym when he switched up his study spots. But in a school the size of Westridge, there was only so much avoiding he could do. "Why don't you tell a teacher?" Emma had finally approached him one day after witnessing Derek trip Isaiah in the hallway, sending his books scattering across the floor. "What would that do except make it worse?" Isaiah replied, gathering his things. "Nobody here cares." It was true, the teachers seemed to either not notice or deliberately ignore Derek's behavior. Mr. Simmons, the vice principal, had once walked by right as Derek was shoving Isaiah into the water fountain, and all he'd said was, "Keep moving to class, gentlemen." Isaiah's parents sensed something was wrong. He'd become quieter at dinner, more withdrawn. He'd stopped talking about making friends or joining clubs. "Is everything okay at school, son?" his father asked one evening. "Yeah, Dad. Just adjusting." Isaiah couldn't bring himself to say more. His father had been so proud when Isaiah had promised to leave fighting behind. How could he explain that every day was becoming a test of that promise? So he endured. He absorbed the taunts, the shoves, the isolation. He channeled his frustration into his training at home, hitting the punching bag in the garage until his knuckles were raw, executing takedowns on the practice dummy until sweat soaked through his shirt. 3 weeks became a month, and Derek's harassment only escalated. Now they had a new game. Isaiah hunting, they called it. They would lie in wait for him between classes, around corners after school. The physical stuff was getting worse too. What started as shoves had evolved to tripping, slaps to the back, of the head, and once a painful kidney punch in the locker room when no one was looking. Every time Isaiah absorbed the blow, gritted his teeth, and walked away. "You know what your problem is?" Derek said one day after cornering Isaiah by the gym. "You're too easy, no fun at all, you just take it like a little bitch." Isaiah felt a flicker of rage, quickly suppressed. "Leave me alone, Derek." "Or what?" Derek laughed. "You gonna cry about it? Run to mommy. Oh wait, I forgot, you don't do anything." Tyler and Jason closed in from the sides, forming a tight circle around Isaiah. This was new, and alarm bells went off in Isaiah's head. His training kicked in, and he automatically assessed the situation, planning escape routes and defensive positions. "Maybe we need to step things up," Derek continued, his voice dropping dangerously. "Give Four Eyes here a real Westridge welcome." Isaiah prepared himself for a punch, but instead, Derek just smiled, a cold, calculating smile that was somehow worse than any physical blow. "See you tomorrow, Mouse," Derek said abruptly, stepping back. "Better wear something you don't mind getting ruined." The three bullies walked away, leaving Isaiah with a sick feeling in his stomach. This wasn't over. It was just getting started. The next day, Isaiah approached school with dread coiling in his gut. He'd barely slept, his mind racing with possibilities of what Derek might be planning. Would it be a public humiliation, a group beating in some hidden corner of the school? Whatever it was, Isaiah knew it would be bad. He made it through his morning classes without incident, which only increased his anxiety. Derek hadn't even looked his way in the one class they shared, but Isaiah had caught Tyler and Jason whispering and snickering, shooting glances in his direction. By lunchtime, his nerves were frayed. He decided to skip the cafeteria entirely and headed for the art room, which he knew would be empty during lunch period. Mrs. Bennett, the art teacher, had taken a liking to him and had given him permission to use the room whenever he wanted to work on his sketches. As he approached the art room, he noticed the door was slightly ajar. That was odd. Mrs. Bennett always locked it when she wasn't there. Isaiah hesitated, a warning prickle at the back of his neck. Maybe I should go somewhere else, he thought. But where? The library would be full of students escaping the cold. February day. The cafeteria was out of the question, and hiding in a bathroom stall was just too pathetic to contemplate. Taking a deep breath, Isaiah pushed the door open. For a split second, he registered the bucket perched precariously on top of the door. Then a cascade of thick blue paint came tumbling down, drenching him from head to toe. The shock of it, the cold, wet slap against his skin, the acrid smell filling his nostrils, the sudden sticky weight of his clothes, froze him in place. Blue paint dripped from his glasses, obscuring his vision. It seeped through his shirt, his jeans, even into his shoes. He could feel it running down his scalp, behind his ears, along his neck. And then came the laughter. Derek, Tyler, and Jason emerged from their hiding, spots behind the storage cabinets howling with glee. Derek had his phone out, recording the whole thing. "Oh man, this is priceless," Derek wheezed between fits of laughter. "Look at him. He's a fucking smurf. Got any other colors for us, Picasso?" Jason added, barely able to speak through his snickering. Tyler pretended to take a photo with an imaginary camera. "This one's going on the school website for sure." Isaiah stood motionless, paint dripping onto the floor around him. Through the blue film covering his glasses, he saw other faces appear at the door, students drawn by the commotion. Some looked shocked, others amused. A few had their phones out, capturing his humiliation for posterity. Something inside Isaiah snapped. 8 years of disciplined training, 8 years of his father's voice reminding him that martial arts was about respect, about self-control, about walking the honorable path. 8 years of internalizing the philosophy that fighting was the last resort. But there was another voice now, his own, screaming that enough was enough. With deliberate calm, Isaiah removed his glasses and placed them on a nearby desk. He wiped the paint from his eyes with the back of his hand. Then he looked directly at Derek, who was still laughing and filming. "Turn off the phone," Isaiah said, his voice eerily steady. Something in his tone made Derek pause, but only briefly. "Or what? You gonna cry blue tears at me?" This set off another round of laughter from Tyler and Jason. Isaiah took a step forward. "I said turn off the phone." Derek's smirk faltered slightly. This wasn't the reaction he'd expected. The meek, stuttering kid had been replaced by someone else entirely, someone whose eyes held a cold, focused intensity. "Back off, paint boy," Derek warned, taking a step back despite himself, "unless you want things to get worse." "Worse than this?" Isaiah gestured to his paint-covered body. "I don't think so." In one fluid motion, Isaiah closed the distance between them. Years of training took over. He struck with precision and economy, a quick jab to Derek's solar plexus that doubled the bigger boy over, followed by a sweeping kick that took Derek's legs out from under him. Derek hit the floor hard, his phone clattering across the tile. The laughter died instantly. Tyler and Jason stared in disbelief for a moment before springing into action. Tyler lunged forward, throwing a wild punch that Isaiah easily sidestepped. Using Tyler's momentum against him, Isaiah executed a perfect hip throw, sending Tyler crashing into a row of easels. Jason, seeing his friends taken down so effortlessly, hesitated. "You want some too?" Isaiah asked, his stance balanced and ready. Jason backed away, hands raised. "What the hell, man? It was just a joke." By now, Derek had recovered enough to scramble to his feet, fury replacing his earlier shock. "You're dead, you little freak," he growled, charging forward with his head down like a bull. Isaiah remained calm, calculating. As Derek reached him, Isaiah pivoted, using a basic Aikido technique to redirect Derek's charge. The bully's own momentum sent him careening into the art supply cabinet, which toppled over with a tremendous crash of breaking glass and splintering wood. Paint tubes exploded on impact, adding splashes of red, yellow, and green to the blue already coating the floor. Brushes, palette knives, and other supplies scattered everywhere. The growing crowd at the door gasped collectively. No one had ever seen anything like this. Derek Reynolds, the untouchable king of Westridge, was sprawled amid a rainbow of paint and broken art supplies, looking dazed and disoriented. Tyler had managed to disentangle himself from the fallen easels and was now backing toward the door, his eyes wide with fear. Jason was already halfway down the hallway, having decided that discretion was the better part of valor. Isaiah stood in the center of the chaos, blue paint still dripping from his clothes, his breathing controlled, and his stance ready. He looked like some kind of avenging spirit, calm but terrifying. Derek staggered to his feet, his pristine white designer shirt now a Jackson Pollock canvas of paint splatters. Blood trickled from a cut on his cheek where a jar had shattered. The look he gave Isaiah was pure hatred. "You're finished at this school," Derek spat. "My dad will—" "Your dad will what?" Isaiah interrupted, his voice still unnervingly calm. "Watch the video you took? The one where you and your friends trapped me and poured paint on me. The one that's probably already been shared all over social media by now." He gestured toward the onlookers with their phones. "I'm pretty sure that counts as assault, Derek. And I'm pretty sure there are plenty of witnesses." For the first time, uncertainty flashed across Derek's face. He looked around at the crowd, noticing just how many people were recording. "This isn't over," Derek muttered, but the threat sounded hollow even to his own ears. "Yes, it is," Isaiah replied firmly. "It's over right now. You will never touch me again. You will never speak to me again. You will leave me alone for the rest of your life, because if you don't—" He let the sentence hang, the implication clear. A slow clapping sound cut through the tense silence. Mrs. Bennett stood at the edge of the crowd, her expression a mix of shock and fury. "Everyone not covered in paint back to lunch. Now," she commanded. The crowd reluctantly began to disperse, though phones remained out, still recording. "Derek, Tyler, Isaiah, don't move. Mr. Simmons is on his way." The aftermath was as chaotic as the fight itself. The three boys were escorted to the office, leaving trails of paint down the hallway. Parents were called. Isaiah sat stone-faced in the office, still dripping blue paint onto the plastic chair they'd hastily covered with trash bags for him to sit on. His father arrived first, his expression grave. But when he saw Isaiah, Blue from head to toe, glasses perched precariously on his paint-splattered nose. His face registered surprise rather than anger. "Son?" he said tentatively, as if not quite sure he was looking at his own child. Isaiah met his father's gaze steadily. "I'm sorry, Dad, I know I promised, but I couldn't walk away this time." Before his father could respond, Mr. Simmons ushered them into his office, where the principal, Dr. Harrison, was waiting. Derek's father arrived minutes later, blustering about lawsuits and demanding Isaiah's expulsion before he'd even heard the full story. But then the videos started making the rounds, not just of the fight, but of Derek setting up the paint trap, laughing as Isaiah entered, recording the humiliation with his own phone. Evidence that couldn't be explained away or dismissed. Other students, emboldened by Isaiah's stand, came forward with their own stories of Derek's bullying, incidents that had been brushed under the rug for years. Emma Rodriguez provided a detailed account of everything she'd witnessed since Isaiah's arrival. Even a teacher admitted to having seen concerning behavior, but feeling pressured to ignore it, given Derek's family connections. In the end, Isaiah received a 3-day suspension for fighting, the minimum punishment required by school policy. Derek and Tyler were suspended for 2 weeks, with Derek facing possible expulsion pending a school board hearing. As they drove home, Isaiah's father was unusually quiet. Finally, at a red light, he turned to his son. "Was that the first time, the paint?" Isaiah shook his head, flecks of drying blue paint falling onto his lap. "No, it's been going on since I started. Every day something. I tried to handle it the way you taught me." His father sighed heavily. "I never meant for you to just take abuse, Isaiah. When I talked about walking away, I meant from fights you don't need to have, not from standing up for yourself when there's no other choice." He reached over and placed a hand on Isaiah's shoulder, not caring about the paint that transferred to his palm. "I'm proud of you for trying to keep your promise, but I'm also proud of you for knowing when enough was enough." When Isaiah returned to school after his suspension, everything had changed. The hallways parted for him now, not out of fear but a new kind of respect. Students who had never spoken to him before now greeted him by name. Teachers watched him with a mix of caution and curiosity. The story had become legend overnight. How the quiet new kid had taken down Westridge's worst bully with moves straight out of an action movie. Derek and Tyler were still absent, their fates yet to be determined. Jason had returned but kept his distance, eyes averted whenever Isaiah passed by. Emma was the first to really approach him, sliding into the seat next to his in biology. "That was pretty badass what you did," she said without preamble. "Why? Didn't you ever tell anyone you were basically a ninja?" Isaiah smiled slightly. "It wasn't relevant until it was." "Well, it was incredible," she continued. "Scary but incredible. Are you okay though? Really okay?" The question caught him off guard. No one had really asked him that before. Not about the bullying, not about the fight, not about any of it. "I'm getting there," he answered honestly. "It wasn't how I wanted things to play out, but maybe it needed to happen." Over the following weeks, a new normal established itself. Isaiah joined the school's martial arts club, which had previously been an unstructured group of kids mimicking moves they'd seen in movies. Under Isaiah's guidance, it transformed into something more serious, with proper training and discipline. To everyone's surprise, Jason showed up at one of the practices. "I want to learn," he said awkwardly. "Not to hurt people, just to be better." Isaiah studied him for a long moment before nodding. "First lesson is about respect, for yourself and others." Jason became an unlikely student, and, though he and Isaiah were never friends exactly, there was a mutual understanding between them. Tyler, upon his return, kept his distance, having apparently learned his lesson. Derek, however, had been withdrawn from the school by his parents, who claimed the environment had become hostile toward their son. On a warm spring day, as Isaiah was walking home from school, he spotted a familiar car idling at the curb. Derek's distinctive black sports car with its custom rims. The window rolled down, revealing Derek's face, the cut on his cheek now a faint scar. Isaiah tensed, preparing for confrontation, but instead, Derek merely looked at him for a long moment. "You could have done a lot worse that day," Derek finally said, his voice lacking its usual aggression. "You had me. You could have really messed me up." Isaiah shrugged. "That wasn't the point." "Then what was the point?" "To end it. Nothing more." Derek nodded slowly. "Well, it worked. I'm transferring to Lakeside Prep next week." He revved the engine. "Just wanted you to know no hard feelings." It wasn't quite an apology, but from Derek, it was as close as one could expect. As the car pulled away, Isaiah felt something settle within him, a sense of closure, perhaps, or just the knowledge that he had stayed true to himself when it mattered most. That night, as he practiced his forms in the garage, his father joined him, stepping onto the mat for the first time since they'd moved. "Show me what you've been working on," his father said, taking up a defensive stance. Isaiah smiled and mirrored his father's position. As they began to spar, lightly, respectfully, Isaiah felt the final pieces fall into place. He had broken his promise, but found something more valuable in the process. He had discovered where the true line was, not between fighting and not fighting, but between allowing yourself to be victimized and standing up with dignity. The blue. Paint had long since washed away, but its impact remained a permanent mark on Isaiah's life and the life of Westridge High. Sometimes the most vivid colors weren't the ones you chose for yourself, but the ones that were thrust upon you. And what mattered was what you created from them.